So I think now I'll show you some stuff from things I've been working on over the last few years. I will start with Beware the Batman, which was the first CGI show that I ever worked on for Glenn. Let's see where is it? Oh, I don't have Beware stuff. I wonder what happened to it. Color and Benedict Flintstones, Gods and Monsters. Oh, I have to skip that. So, a couple years ago, I got to work with Bruce Timm again at Warner Brothers. This was the first time in 15 years I got to do designs for a direct-to-DVD movie called Gods and Monsters. I was very nervous.
Why?
Because I want to please him so badly, because I admire him so much. So these are some roughs for Harley. They were doing a different take on Harley. This was geared more towards adults. I didn't especially like the movie. I thought it was a little nasty, but it just wasn't really my thing. But it was great. It's always great working for Bruce. I always learn a lot. And usually the way that I work with him is I know he's going to redraw everything I give him. So I don't even try necessarily to draw on model. I just try to give him ideas that he can take and kind of do his own thing with. So I just kind of did him in my own style. And then this is, Bruce took that and did his model, and then I did the turn on this. I did it from the different angles. I remember I worked so hard on this. This was Little Brainiac. One of the more unpleasant of the shorts they did to accompany this thing. Superman kills a little kid. So I just wanted to give him the Chuck Jones eyes, his hopeful eyes routine. So he's looking up at Superman, wondering why, he's just, I don't know what he is. He exploded all this energy and killed a city, and Superman figures that I guess I better kill you. So he looks up with his sad eyes, and then that's what we ended. That's Bruce did that model, and I cleaned it up in Photoshop. And then this was Livewire. That was a character that I designed, I think, with Bruce in the old days, and this was kind of an updated, not even really a super. I was so frustrated. Glenn sent me a drawing where he had taken this and he put the David Bowie Aladdin Sane lightning bolt over his eye, and it made the design. And I wish so badly I had thought of that. That was the lowest. I don't really like this. This is not even in Bruce's style. It's not in my style. It's kind of just not anything, but that was it. And then, so right after, God, I was so ready to talk about Beware the Batman. I don't know where my files went. But anyway, it was a really challenging show to work on because it was CG, and we were all learning how to do it. And the turns that we had to do for it were very rigid and technical. And so right at the first project that I got put on after that was a Flintstones project. It was a Flintstones WWE crossover. And I was thrilled to work on it, for one, because it was so much easier than drawing these kind of lumpy cave people, and because I got to work off of Ed Benedict's Flintstone designs. So this is, after a few revisions, I still think Fred's head is too small, but this was what we ended up with as the final models. And this was some of the first, I found a plain background on the internet and just sort of threw some stuff on top of it to try it out, see how it was working. Sam Register, who's in charge of Warner Brothers Animation, in one of the early meetings, he said, if you show me the same old stuff, I'm going to reject it. So that was kind of nice to be encouraged to go weird with it. I hadn't done anything in this style before, but I think because I was into Tupper and guys that were still in this kind of world, and I had looked at Ed Benedict stuff so much that it came fairly easy to me. So I had to populate the city, and I went back to the first episode, and I pulled all the incidental characters that Ed had done, and I just sort of did new versions of them. I didn't really change them much. And we also integrated Bedrock a bit. I've got a bunch of these. Oh, I just still framed and made screenshots of the title sequence because they wanted to use that bird again. I kept this stuff pretty traditional. I didn't want to go flat and wacky with it because it had already been done. I wanted it to really look as much like that first season of the Flintstones as possible because they're some of my favorite cartoons.
What year was this that you did this?
Maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
You really pulled it forward to contemporary times.
Thanks. Do a bunch of water buffaloes. Like they were all standing in line waiting to get a kiss from the female wrestlers, the Bella Twins. Graded Keeper. Phil Silver's on the right. And these went through a lot of revisions from WWE. I'll show you my initial roughs, which I like a lot more. But I'm still surprised that they let us draw them so weird. Because they're from what I hear, they're really controlling of this stuff. So I was glad that they let us caricature them as much as we did. That's just this stuff is just fun to draw. Big, simple shapes.
Do you draw these using a settee? Or do you do
These were cleaned
traditionally?
up by Lance Falk, so I gave him my roughs and he did the final. And I don't remember the colorist's name. I think it was Jesse. I'm not sure of his last name. I did so much of this stuff. There's Freddie Lassie on the left, and then sort of an Evel Knievel kind of thing on the right. I like hundreds of these things. Some of the on the Daniel, I think his name's Daniel Bryan or so, on the right. I initially gave him this kind of neat curly beard, and it got vetoed. And I don't like how that spiky beard came out because it just moved like that in animation as these like weird like claw shapes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's who's the guy on the left? Anyone that don't know his name?
CM Punk.
Yeah, CM Punk. Boy, there are a lot of these. This was my first pass on these wrestlers, and I'd never heard of any of these guys. I'd heard of John Cena. This is CM Punk. So I didn't really. I tried to watch a few clips to try to figure out what their shtick was, but mostly I counted on the director, Spike and Tony, to kind of clue me in. I think third from the left on the top was Vince McMahon, and then the rest are just variations on CM Punk or Cena. I wanted to get that like bulging, bony head that he had. Like things went out and in weird places. A few more. So I think the last thing I'll show you will be what I'm working on currently. And I have to ask that nobody take pictures of this stuff. Approached drawing as like memorizing things, and how that didn't work for me, in that I would sit down to draw and would have to remember all these things in order to start drawing, and then it would result in a drawing that was cobbled together shapes. And I could do a lot with that. I knew how to contrast those shapes. I knew how to make something big and how to make something small. But something happened a couple years ago, and I think it may have been a result of me, let me see if I wrote any notes down, because this is really hard to put into words. I realized that what I needed to do was stop thinking, and I needed to, wow, this is so hard to find a way to put into words. I needed to get past that memorization and thinking and get beyond that to the place where I sort of have that knowledge in me that I've accumulated, and have it come out in a natural way. And the way that I learned to do that was by, one thing, not getting stressed out at the start when it's not going well, which I used to do. I would turn bright red, I'd get sweaty, and I would start insulting myself, and like I'd say, this is terrible, you're never going to learn to draw. And so I'd have all that stuff swimming around in my head, and I'd get into this panic, and nothing could come out. And then when I would see a bad drawing, because of that, I'd think, oh, well, see, you were right. You just can't do it. You're never going to learn how to draw. I would tell myself that over and over. And so one of the first things I had to do was to get myself to stop doing that, to shut down that voice in my head. Because it got so bad where I would get a job, and while I would start doing the job, I would have this dialogue in my head of how I'm going to email these people my excuse for why I can't do it. So I'd be trying to do designs, and I'd be like, in my head composing like, I'm really sorry, I'm going through a hard time, or it's like, I just, whatever. So I wasn't even focusing on what I was doing. I was so caught up in this anxiety and this fear and this negativity. And I realized that it was a big problem, not just in my art, but just in life in general. And one of the things that really helped me was learning this mindfulness meditation that sort of taught me to sort of settle my head down, like to just stop for a second and just like chill out, sort of watch your breath for a little while, and then start working. I realized that it helps me to set a specific goal, like to know what I want to achieve with this drawing, to take a minute to think, like to visualize, to think about what I want to do, and accept the fact that it's still gonna be clumsy and awkward for a while, but once I push through that and get past the thinking and this, and just draw and draw and draw and not get worried about it, something like really amazing happens, in that the lines start almost drawing themselves. And I almost feel like I'm watching the lines kind of appear on the paper, rather than desperately trying to remember what eye shape is that, or how did Roy Nelson do that, or and that was such an amazing feeling to me. And something else happens, and it still sometimes happens, where when that starts clicking and it starts flowing, another panic will set in, like, what if it stops? And so I'd almost like stop myself out of fear that I'm going to be so crushed that I feel like the magic now is happening. After 20, 30 years of trying to find the answers to this stuff and looking to other people to show me how to do it, I realized that the only way I can get this stuff to work is if I forget about that stuff and let what I know already come out of me in a natural, organic way. And it's resulted, and that's click started to happen in this latest book. And I could even go through it and see drawings that were done the old way from memory, and the beginnings of this new way. And And it's so much more pleasing to me to look at those because they feel more like me, like more an extension of who I am rather than a Frankenstein monster of Hearst, Bruce Timm, Glenn, all my heroes. And there's no way anyone can keep all that stuff in their head and access it. At least I can't imagine it. Like, I think it really became clear to me that all this stuff that I'd read in like Eastern philosophy and meditation for the last 10 years or so applies so well to this. Like, you need to kind of, to me, I'm only speaking like for myself, I realize I need to get past my head and into something a little deeper and let it, and just sort of get out of the way of it and let it come out. And I've been more excited about drawing now than I ever have in my life because drawing has been a painful experience to me. I wanted so bad to be good. I wanted so bad to be as good as my friends. I wanted to be as good as my heroes. I would ache wanting to be Roy Nelson or Frank Frazetta. And that, I know that I did that because I was looking for a way. I was looking for a teacher. I was looking for a guide. I was looking for someone to show me. But it also created, at some point you got to set that aside and realize that, okay, my mentors, whatever, did their job. Now it's time for me to take what I've learned and now do something with it. Because I could easily just keep going on getting more. I need more stuff. I need to learn more. And then I'll be able to draw. And I realized that 46 years old now, that if that hasn't happened by now, it's not going to. So I hope that made sense. It really felt like I needed to grow up in a lot of ways and have a little more trust in that I don't need to just think that I have to be another person as an artist. That I know a lot now. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been a professional artist in animation for like 20 years. And up until the last couple of years, every time I would sit down to draw, it would be the same struggle. And this isn't supposed to be a painful thing, creating. I mean, it is in the way that it's painful for any kind of growth. But I was so focused on the end result of it, of being this or doing this, that I made the journey to get there this really painful, miserable thing. And that makes your whole life miserable. It did for me because I lived drawing and cartoons. Like that's what I would think about when I'd go to bed. It's what I'd think about when I'd wake up. And it occupied my every waking moment thinking about this stuff. And I think the lesson I learned is that the thinking sets the stage, the learning sets the stage, and then you take off the training wheels and trust yourself enough to know that I got it now. Let's see what happens with it. Maybe it won't be what I want it to be. Maybe it won't be Frank Frazetta, but I might surprise myself with what I have in me. So that's probably the best way I could put it. And it's still an ongoing process for me, like to deal with the anxiety of it and stuff like that. But I feel like I see a way now. Like I like what's coming out of me. So I'm really excited now about the next part. Like I don't know how much longer I want to stay in animation. I really want to do comics, illustration. I want to write. I want to do books on artists. And so I feel really optimistic about it. Animation's been great to me. It's a great job. It's great people. But it can also be a bit of a trap because ultimately you are part of a kind of assembly line. And there's a lot of standardization that goes along with that. You are there to please other people. You're there to sell product. You're there to sell Happy Meals and action figures and to please your bosses. And there's a big part of me that's never been satisfied with that because I think I've got something in me there's something in me I want to share. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I don't think I'll be able to do it through animation. And I've been around the pitching process and the development process to know that the odds are against me getting what I want into the final product. There are too many factors in play, so I'm gonna try to figure out what that next thing is. I think that's it. I forgot to show you one artist. Can I show you one other person really quick? Do we have time?
Yeah.